Okay, so just one second. I want to get right here. There we go. So I am just going to start off here. So just a little, thank you for the introduction. You can see my screen okay now, right? You can see the PowerPoint? Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to start off here by just introducing myself a little bit about the training program and how this relates. So you're right, like I have over 20 years in the industry, but before that, I actually was in retail and I was a training and development manager, and I did a lot of training in recruiting and training managers. So I love recruitment and I love training, and now I kind of put them both together after all these years. And seasonal workers is I mean, that was my life. I mean, I think about back to school and I think about like Christmas and how we always had to go on an ongoing kind of recruitment process about recruiting seasonal workers. And then actually in my first career in recruitment, when I worked with a large agency, we did a lot of seasonal workers. So we did either peak times for like summer and or fall for depending in egg, and then of course at Christmas for hospitality. So it's been part of my life for a long time. So I want to just chat with you about some of the best practices that we utilize in recruitment, and then also kind of correlate it back to seasonal workers. So we have an hour today, and I talk really, really fast. So if I am talking too fast, please slow me down. And if you have questions in the middle of the presentation, please ask. I will stop and definitely answer your question or clarify what I'm chatting about. But I hope to have time also at the end for some Q&A. So we're going to talk about the labor market, about where we're at, what is happening. And then we're going to get into what talent acquisition is. And then, of course, most importantly, being an employer of choice and how it affects recruitment. So I've been saying a lot, especially since the last couple of years, is that marketing and HR are one. And the way that just we have to recruit and retain employees, and there's just so much information out there, and how do we get to the right people? So we'll talk about that. Talking about when it comes to being an employer of choice, why being an employee-centric culture actually affects your recruitment and retention. And then we'll chat about like how to plan and execute and stay on track when you're thinking about recruiting for seasonal workers. And then I'll just get quickly into high level about some of the methods that maybe I would give ideas about if I were working and doing seasonal workers. So this has been the question, especially since COVID, and I know this is starting to be a little bit redundant. I mean, we're about 2 years out now, but it still is the same question, like, where are all the people? Like, where did they go? And, you know, there's some rumblings about, like, you know, there might be a recession coming, or, you know, that we might kind of slow down and might ease the pain about the tight labor market, but that's really not going to be the case. Like, there's various factors that are happening, and this has been happening for the last few years. It's just the aging population, so the baby boomers are retiring, and there's declining birth rates. So math itself is going to tell you that we actually just don't have enough employees, people to actually get into the workforce. Baby boomers, like the Gen Z workers, are just entering the labor force, and it is smaller than any previous generation. So think about your grandmother having 7 children or 14 children, and then think about the next gen. Like my children are 28 years old, and they're not even having children yet, and they're having 1 or 2. And so that really, we actually came into a deficit from the baby boomers from now for actually how many people were going into the workforce. So the unemployment to job vacancy is an all-time low. So in the beginning, and I should have 2023 there, I apologize, the ratio was as low as 1.1. So what that means is basically for every job posting, there's a person that can fill that role. And so that is a very low number. When you think about it, we've been high as like 4.2. So there's like 4 jobs for every person. Or sorry, 4 people for every person. Now we're down to like basically a person a job. So, and when you think about it, there's a ratio that is just unemployable. We're in a deficit. So I always say that we're in a forever labor shortage, and that we actually have to just think about doing things different and embrace it. So the one thing that I would say about talent acquisition, it's the wording is just really, we're always recruiting. So the thought would be, the ideal situation, I would say, is that you would never have to post a job again, that you're doing so many different types of recruitment methods, that you're building an ongoing database, that you can go to the database and not compete with your competitors in a typical traditional way of going through a job board. So, but it's a different type of practice, and it's a different type of method. So the thought is that you're never stop recruiting. And if you want to reflect and think about what you're doing now, is it like, for instance, like if you need someone to start on December 1st, do you start thinking about that on October 15th or November 1st and go through a traditional method? Or how far ahead are you planning about going into a start date of December 1st? My suggestion is that you don't end. Like, as you're always continually building. You may not be able to hire them till December 1st, but you're building a database to go to. So when it's time to hire, that you have a database to go to start, that you can hire from. So it's just a process of talent attraction in a proactive way to engage individuals in various different methods all the time. And that the other thing I would say is that we're always thinking of the future. So it's not always just right now. The thought would be is that you're becoming in a proactive state, not a reactive state. And even if they're not right for the role right now, could they be right for the future? So, and I just wanted to give a little bit of a perspective of how job seekers are actually finding jobs. So take it on kind of not on the employer, but the employee. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of information out there, and Google I have a love-hate relationship with Google because of all the information that comes out there. But when people are looking for a job, and you think about it, like where they're going to is like, well, how do I find a job? I'm not an expert at looking for a job. So I'm going to Google on how to find a job. And what the web advises them is that they pick a job board that works for you. So if you think about your roles, is the current, like right now, Indeed and LinkedIn are like the kind of the number one or number two job boards, dependent on what type of role it is. But then are there any type of specific associations, education, regulatory body that you can also utilize, and would that person be connected to that job board? The other thing that they are told to do is research companies and pick keywords. So one of the things that I always say is that make sure that your job titles are very clear and very specific. We're starting to get creative about kind of some of the job roles that we are, the titles of jobs just sound more attractive, and kind of set out. But when they're researching you, or where they're researching jobs, so for instance, customer service agent, server, order desk, they are going very traditional and very specific to what they know. And most importantly, they're researching you. So if you think about how many times you have Googled somebody else when you're looking for an employee, like when you're going through a recruitment process or an interview process, they're doing the same to you. So they're looking back and saying, how well, how is their, like how well you're representing the organization? How do you treat people? What is your culture like? And what is your perception out in the community? And are you a respectful workplace? So just some stats came out. These are in 2023. Nearly half of the recent hires, 41, still are finding it through an online job board. And they're utilizing the job alerts. So what that happens is that's when you invest in roles in job boards, not free job boards, that they will get that seeker will get alerts, and that's, they're not spending the time seeking jobs necessarily, but what they are doing is they are looking at roles when they do get the alert. So it's easy for them to look at jobs. 25%, and this number is rising, is through networking. So more of kind of a passive recruitment method, not just your typical job boards. And they are utilizing social media. So it's not just that they're using like the traditional job boards, as I mentioned, like SAS Jobs, Indeed, LinkedIn job board. They're actually using social media such as Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, as in kind of the feeds itself. We also we know that videos are very important. So other methods are coming up, or like even through YouTube, of course, Snapchat, TikTok, like all of these ones are where there's videos are really starting to be a connection calls. So really getting into being an employer of choice. So as mentioned, employees have choices. They have opportunities where they can go several different places, and they are picking organizations that are respected within the community or have a well-known brand. So the reputation, so they're doing their research when they're checking, when they're applying for roles. And so that means, or when they're considering accepting a role. So your reputation, 84%, that's a massive number. So what I would do, what I would say is I would reflect on this and go back and be someone who's looking for a role, like sit in their seat and take a look at your website, check out your Google reviews, check out Glassdoor. They're an organization, a platform that actually promotes on employees, and they give reviews. And so how many stars do you have from your employees? Look at some of your past job postings. Like, so for instance, on Indeed, they do also have reviews. If you looked at your social media, would someone look at your organization and understand if you are a respectful company? So take a look at it and see what they see, because as I mentioned, marketing and HR are one now. And when they're doing the research, they're really taking a look at who you are, what type of organization you are, and how you treat your employees. The one thing that we do see a lot when we do this exercise through the training program is we know that the organizations really talk about how they service their clients, which is very, very important, but it's really hard to find out how they treat their employees. You may notice, though, in social media feeds, and especially in businesses, that they are starting to promote how they treat their employees and how they chat about, or they recognize their employees, and because they do recognize that that people are looking at them, and if they are an employer choice and they want to apply. So you kind of have to get on that bandwagon to make sure that you stay competitive. And then passive seekers. So what a passive seeker is, someone that is not necessarily looking, but would be willing to look at opportunities. They will only consider working, 92% will only consider working for a well-managed company. So some of the things that I would promote, and when you're thinking about this, if you're going to do it on a job board, if you're going to do it on social media, when you're having conversations with people, I understand that there's pay. There's always pay. People are looking for fair pay. They're not necessarily they're not necessarily jumping across the street for 25 cents an hour, like what we were feeling before. What they are asking for are work-life balance, trust and respect, transparency and honesty, clear goals. They really want to have meaningful work. So when they go to work, it doesn't matter what role it is. They want to be there, and they want to make sure that it meets their expectations. Accountability and responsibility, we're seeing that a lot. Recognition and praise, and professional development. So it doesn't matter if this is a part-time job, a seasonal job, or a full-time executive job. This is really some of the demands that we're seeing over and over again when they're asking questions about the employer, about why they should work for you, and if they're going to stay or return, which is a very important thing on seasonal workers. If you want them to come back the next year, you have to remember that there's more than the pay. There's how they feel and how they're treated at work will be in serious consideration when they're relooking next year. So I'm going to run into the culture. So companies sink or swim based on their internal culture. A bad hire can hugely affect morale, productivity, and ultimately the bottom line. And I know, and I've done this, I'm a culprit of this, is that especially when we're hiring for such a short period of time and when we're in a tight labor market, we're not necessarily doing the due diligence as we would do when we are maybe hiring for a permanent full-time. We're like, we just need bodies. We need someone to fill this role. But in reality, if you reflect on it, would it be better to keep that role vacant, or would it be right if we didn't have the right fit and it poisoned the culture, would it be better to keep that role vacant? So I would say, you can choose what that looks like, but I would ask that question before we just hire someone that doesn't fit your culture. I'm going really fast here. So are we okay? Okay. So one of the things we chat about a lot are employee-centric cultures. And an organization with employee-centric cultures welcomes open communication, encourages feedback, safety, and inspires innovation. The workforce becomes a top priority. So the thought is that your front line, you start with your front line and you work yourself up. So gone are the days of kind of like the dictatorship down type of thought processes that, it starts from the top and you dictate down and you kind of forget who the front line is and making decisions that way. But if you start with the front line and move your way up and think about the ones that are actually on the floor, they're the ones and that you think about what they are looking for in a workplace, then you become an employee-centric culture. And then your reputation as an employer of choice builds, and then people want to work for you. So the thought is it's kind of a circle, right? So when I was talking about before, the talent acquisition piece about never stop recruiting, a big piece of that is that you want people to want to come to work for you, that you don't need to find them, that they're going to find you because of your reputation on how you treat employees. And the lovely thing about Saskatchewan is that we're very, very nice to each other, and we'll give referrals and, we'll give recommendations. And when somebody really likes someone or likes something, they really chat about it and they really want to help each other. But also we're a very small province where if something negative happens, or if there is a reputation that is not necessarily that positive, that also spreads like fire. So I would say I would be wanting being on the other side of the reputation of like employer of choice, want to work there, everyone there is treated well. So when they are looking or when they are considering two different roles, you're the one that they want to pick. So going back to talent acquisition, the thing is that planning is a huge piece. So when I said never stop recruiting, there still has to be a plan. And I think about it in the perspective of a candidate who's applying for a role, we really want to ensure that they have a great experience. So again, because of the brand that you portray and you want to be an employer of choice is that you want to make sure that the applicant's experience is very positive, because even if they don't get the job, you want them to say positive things about you. There is a huge stat about if people don't have a great experience going through an application process, they not only will never support your organization. So if you're selling a product or if you have a service that you want them, so for instance, like dining in your restaurant, they'll never come and they will never bring their friends. And so it actually is not treating the people well through a process is actually double affecting on how you are treated. So it has a double effect. Not only are you like losing business, you're also gaining a negative reputation in the community of not someone wanting to apply or work for your organization. So if you're not planning properly, you can lose candidates' interest. It will delay your process and you're not meeting your timelines. And then there's bottlenecks. You're not giving yourself enough time in between each step. So when you're thinking about when you start recruiting, when you need to actually start hiring, when they need to actually be on, when the orientation starts, what type of onboarding do they have, and when are they going to be actually ready to do their role. And then also, if you're not planning properly and you have such a busy schedule because you're recruiting on the side of your desks and you have about 150 things to do, canceling interviews or not giving feedback will affect your employer brand and the candidate's perception. So my recommendation is that when you're thinking about planning, about when you're starting, when you're going to start recruiting for a role. So the thought is that, okay, like let's say you have, I would double your time is basically what I'm going to tell you. So if you think that you need people for December 1st and you think that starting on November 1st is going to be sufficient, it's not. And when you think about, okay, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to have this delay of like, okay, if I start in September for December, what am I going to do with these people between in that leg of time? It's communication. So think about when you are recruiting, think about when your competitors are recruiting, and think about how you can get ahead of the game. So I would recruit early and keep them motivated until they start. So a few things that you can, because then you can plan out the process that makes sure that you're not doing a quick hire and you're just checking it off your list. And because again, you're doing 150 things on the side of your desk. So just hiring people is just one of the things that you need to do. Make sure that it's a very thorough process that has and ensuring that you have all the information that you need from that person, that you can give them an offer and you're confident about them working in your workplace, because they want that information. They want to know about your company. They want to know what it's like in the day in the life and what their responsibilities are. So if you can have that thorough interview process and giving that information, that will help retain people, even if it's for a short period, because you're thinking about you want to hire them again the next year. So it's their experience. And then I'm going to contradict myself. With that also, it should be a quick hire. So what I'm saying with that is that there's a balance of making sure that you have enough information to do a good job, to have a good interview process, but you also don't want to keep them waiting through processes. So my example to that, and what I mean is that think about you putting out a job post. Traditionally, we have seen people put job postings up for a month and then they intake applicants and then they don't call them until the end date of the application date is done. That is too much of a gap for the person that is applying. So what I would recommend that you do is that you have the job posting up. You could re-put it up, or your social media strategy, or whatever the process that you're utilizing, is that you are chatting with people through the whole entire process. So if you have a deadline of, I'm going to start interviewing, I want people in place for December 2nd, you may start talking to people in September and chatting with them and getting them through the process that they know the date is December 2nd. So you can get them signed on, and then you're continuing to recruit. So it's not blocked time. So you're just continually looking at applicants, you're continually talking to people, you're continually interviewing, you're continually signing people on, and then you have your full workforce on your deadline of December 2nd. Some of the other things that I would recommend is that in that gap of time, if you've hired relatively earlier, is that you are giving them information about your organization. So you can send them the company video, you can send them to the website, you can give them like their paperwork early, you can give them some information about like tips and tricks about how to, just getting them prepared about your culture, the job. Like there's people that just have, like, if they have emails, blasts or newsletters or things that are going on within their organization community, just to keep them engaged. That will help. The other thing that I would say is, if you are looking for a recurring workforce, to be consistent about when you would be reaching out to them. So I would say that, just so you know, when you plan appropriately, that if you're going to start, you're thinking that you're assuming that they're going to start on December, that I would start chatting with them, 3 months prior, and say, hey, we're ready to start thinking about recruitment. This is September. Are you still on board? Do you have any friends that we can also contact? But start that engagement earlier and get it into their head and engage them, because you need to be in front of them. Assuming that they're just going to start is probably not going to be the right assumption if someone else is actually quoted. I'm giving you a lot of high-level information right now, so if anybody has any questions about the details about this, please let me know. Okay, so also when you're planning, I always say start with the completion date in mind. So generally what we see is that people start to think about, okay, I'm going to start on September 1st, and then I'm going to go through the process, and then I'm going to have this great team on December 1st. I would go backwards on where you think. So I need 10 people on December 1st. So then you start planning and you put it in your calendar about each step of the process. So you should block out your calendar in advance and do not cancel. Keep in mind, are you hiring a passive or active seeker? So a passive is like someone that has either, like, you have either had them in your organization before, they would be interested in knowing about the role, but they're not necessarily they're not, like, they don't need a job tomorrow type of situation. Or someone that is just like interested in new roles, would love to hear about the opportunity, but not necessarily going to leave. An active seeker is someone who's looking for a job right now, or an active seeker is looking for a job for that period of time, or they have a motivation that they need, that they're looking for a role, either because they're laid off, they don't have a job, they're just finishing school, it's a summer job, they're just gaining experience, they're not happy where they are right now for some situation, multiple reasons why they need a job right now. So you need to keep in mind with those timelines if it works for them, because if you can be flexible about getting them on board or when they can start, and communicating and planning that with them is a better, it's better than assuming, okay, well, I'm going to chat with them in October, or sorry, I'm going to get them to apply in October, but not talk to them until November. Have those conversations up front and see if you can make something work. Use technology, databases, or even a checklist. When I started recruiting 25 years ago, we literally had an Excel spreadsheet. So it is, and now we have CRM systems and ATS systems and all those kind of fun things. But I would really utilize some type of planning method and keep on track. Do not drag out the process. Keep the entire process as short as possible when we're talking about each individual. And callback lists and spreadsheets. So what I mean by that is when you are planning your recruitment process, is that when you are, and this goes back to the talent acquisition piece, is when if you're continually always recruiting. So let's say in February you meet someone and you think that they're a great person and they're in school right now and you think they're going to be great for summer. I think that they would be great. So you keep their information. So it's always looking forward and being proactive and building up that database. So what you would do that is either keep it in a spreadsheet or have a file, but then when you're ready to start recruiting, you can go back to that spreadsheet or you can go back to that callback list. Who also, by the way, who can be on those lists are people that have applied before, but maybe weren't the right fit at that time. You should keep those applications because they already got engaged in your company once. So now that it becomes a soft call and say, hey, you know what? We chatted last year. It wasn't a good fit. We have this role this time. Would it be a good fit for you? So utilizing the people that have already been engaged with you or have applied. One of the things that we have seen is that when people go through recruitment processes, they just disregard anybody that has applied or they haven't hired and have never looked back to them. But I feel that's a good opportunity to start. It's a good database to keep. So if you can have a filing system so you can easily go back to them the year after, that will also help engage other people because we'll get into it, but referrals are a thing and they could become your referral network. Okay, so the thought is, I just need to check timing here. Sorry. Okay. Being out in front to attract new talent. So some of the things that I would say is one of the things is networking and referrals. Utilize your network. Utilize your referrals. Who do you know? Who's partners with you? Who are your vendors? Who are the people that you network with or have professional education with, or who to use as mentorship, or are you going to luncheons? Are you going to networking events? Utilize these two groups to promote the word that you're looking. Have an online presence, social media strategies, and share your job openings on Facebook, Instagram, etc. Have LinkedIn connections and engagement. Have an engaging and catchy job profiles that catch their eye. So you want to be set apart. Keep in mind your job profile should be no more than 300 words and have a strong brand presence, including your logo. Because when I'm talking about when they're looking for a role or when your job posting is up, they're looking for companies, right, that are well respected and have a reputation. And sometimes they cannot remember the name of the organization, but they will remember the logo. The thought is that instead of just having a typical job board, what are different ways that you can get in front of people so you're kind of in their face saying, come work for us because we're great. So we're going to get into a few different methods. I have about 7 minutes here, 5 minutes, so I'm going to go a little fast here. But what we want to chat about here, there's two things about a job board. So I think about when we were recruiting for summer students, or sorry, we were recruiting for a period that started from May till September. And it was great for summer students because they had the time off and they had the availability. The problem that we did have is that we had people that had to have May and we had to have September. And so those people couldn't be summer students. But what was pivotal about the difference on how we recruited these two different people was we used two different types of communication and two different types of methods. So you can't have, if you're trying to attract two different people, which one is a student and one is someone who's looking for temporary employment, the posting can't be the same because you're attracting two different people. So you have to think about that. So where are the summer students and how do I recruit summer students? And where are temporary workers and how do I recruit to them? And how do I speak to them? So it's almost like you have two different marketing tools that you have to use. Who's your company? Why would someone want to work for you? What do you offer? And what will they be doing? And those are the things that you really need to, in 3 seconds or less, let somebody know. But I think gone are the days that you can really just have a general posting out there and try to attract a whole bunch of different type of people. So think about your job postings or your job postings and who are you attracting? So it comes back to the planning. Who are you attracting? Who is your target market and how am I going to get them? So maybe one of them is through social media. Maybe one of them is through networking. Maybe something is through a job fair. Maybe it's a referral network, but it necessarily won't be the same person that you will attract by those methods. So you should have more than one. And so kind of going back into the job board here, make sure that it's simple. It points out, it tracks them. There's not a whole bunch of wording. Keep in mind, this is less than 400 words, and this seems wordy. So if you go back to your job profiles and count the words, is it 700, 1100 words? They're not reading it. So you also have to really talk about why and who. And it might be 2 different markets for the same role because you need 2 different types of people. What not to do when you're doing a job profile for a job board is don't make, as I mentioned before, don't do trendy job titles that don't make sense. Cliche phrases or buzzwords, like be clear and concise. Being wordy does not attract anyone. They'll actually just keep on going. If you're using acronyms or your company specific lingo, negative phrases. So if you have a lot of in the requirements, must have, is required. You know, those types of words don't, so then they're disqualifying them. If it's not really a must have and is required, or like, for instance, even the years of experience, if you really would hire someone with 1 year, but you're saying 5 years on the job posting, you're disqualifying them. Writing in third person, interesting enough, it's a psychological thing. People want to, when they're reading a job profile, they want to feel like they're part of your company. They can envision it. So instead of saying the candidate will, the ideal person will, the successful person, I would say you will be part of this organization and you will be doing this. And as part of your role, you would be responsible for this. And the other thing is unnecessary criteria. As I just explained, if you don't need 5 years of experience, but you're posting 5 years of experience, you just disqualified anyone underneath those years. So think about what you really actually is a must-have, hard no, and that is what you put in what you're looking for. Digital ads, social media, very important. 2 things, either go digital or video. We started doing all our job ads by video, but make sure that they're simple. You use real, don't use stock, try to use real pictures. Make sure your colors are your brand, your logo is there, and make sure that there is a call to action and it's easy to apply. The other thing is your network. Really use your network. So first of all, look at your employees first. You can have employee referral programs and they can be structured or unstructured, but utilize your employees. They know who you are. They like where they work. They're the ones that are going to promote it. They're the ones that are going to tell other people about why they should work there. And there is a huge stat about it's known that that someone is referred to work for your organization, you are more successful to get that person on board than someone who doesn't know who you are or has someone backing you up. So think about your employees as an internal referral and then externally think about your partners, your vendors, suppliers, mentor groups, associations. Who are you working with that know your organization, and asking them to know anybody who should work for you. You have to ask a question though. They don't just assume, don't assume because they know that you're looking for someone that they're going to tell you. You actually have to ask a question because they're so busy in their lives that they don't think about actually that piece. The job seeker is 18 times more likely to be employed through a referral. Networking, sometimes we love it, we hate it, but as noted, it's almost an essential part of recruiting now. It's one of the best ways to recruit. You can talk about your organization, you can talk about the opportunity, you can build relationships face to face. They'll remember you. It just doesn't become a job posting on a job board. You're faceless there, where here you can build a network. And so chatting about the opportunities, asking people about what they're looking for, and gaining that relationship. It may be a slow recruit, and it may not be for this year's recruit, but it would be for next year. So it's always, again, about building into the future. And when you're networking, just a few tips, don't go in and say, it's all about you. Make friends. So build that relationship, seek out opportunities to learn. So just don't talk about yourself, ask about them, get to know them, make introductions. So if it's not a good fit for you, maybe there's someone else that can help them out because they will remember you one day and want to work for you. And then always follow up. So we get a lot, maybe an email or a text or a social media note, just quick note saying, nice to meet you. This is who we are. If you ever need us, this is what it is. Check out our job posting here. It's a quick follow up, and always just be honest, transparent, and respectful. And then the last thing I want to talk about is job fairs. They are back and they're coming in hard and heavy. So there's two different types of job boards. There's one that you would use as a centralized one when you're with other organizations. So typically the government will put on job fairs. Some people, Edward School Business puts them on, Saskatchewan Polytechnic puts them on. That's where you would have a booth at a job fair. But I would also recommend if you could have an open house or an internal job fair where they can see your culture, how, who you are, what you have to offer, and then it's a more personalized approach. That would be a great initiative, I think, for seasonal workers, or when you're doing a mass hire. This is a very important recruitment piece that you can utilize because you have their sole attention. There's a lot of planning that goes with it. There's a lot of administration that goes with it, but the outcome can be very successful if you plan properly. And if you plan it properly, and it's a kind of a consistent types of thing that you can do. So some people do it once a year. Some people do it twice a year. Sometimes they just put on a lunch. Sometimes they put on a barbecue. Sometimes you can use it including as a fundraiser. There's lots of different ways that you can do it. But I would think about how can you have a job fair to help you with your seasonal workers. Yeah. Sorry, I know I'm kind of getting to the last of it. And I'm going very fast. You're going to get the slideshow. So, and then if you have any questions, you can come back to me. You want to decide what you're doing, pick your date. FYI, Wednesdays are the most successful date to have a job fair, and then never have it on a Monday or a Friday. You may have it on a Saturday, depending on, it's only for if you are looking for if it makes sense for that type of role. So retail, we did them on Saturday mornings. And then so it was a good time. It was before it was busy, but we needed people that would work Saturdays. We wanted them to see the environment on Saturdays. And it also was convenient for them because they were in school from Monday to Friday. Pick your location. If you are not going into a general job fair and it is in for you, make sure it's accessible for them to get to. You have to meet people where they're at. So if you can get them to come to you, But can they get there by bus? Can they get there by Uber? Is it easy to walk to? Like, it has to be accessible. And then, of course, the preparation side of it, planning your team, ensure that they have a great experience while they're with you. And then, of course, the marketing material, which there's many times that I've seen that people forgot the marketing material. So, and then last but not least, very, very important piece of it, I've said it throughout here, marketing and HR one and recruitment. Recruiters, this is a massive piece of how we recruit, and I would say that number of 59% is even larger now, but you need to be out in front of them. So having a social media strategy, which you probably have for your business, is a very big piece. So thinking about, go back, as I said, go back to your social media, look at your Facebook, look at your Instagram, look at your website, and just say, well, how are you portraying yourself to someone who wants to work for you, or you want someone to work for you, and how are you portraying yourself, and would they actually be engaged to want to work for you? So is there any posts within your feed that really just talk about the employees, or talk about the team, or talk about the culture? When you think about the job postings and when you're doing digital ads on social media, is there the why? Do you feel like you're out in front of them with the opportunity? Because again, like, you need to be in this competitive market in front of them. So how are you doing that through social media? Because that's how they find you. Okay, that was a lot. Sorry, that was very fast and a lot of information, so I apologize.
Thank you so much, Tracy. A reservoir of information that you've provided. I do have some questions here, which I hope that you'll be able to attend to. We do have some minutes left. One of the questions I think you touched on briefly, it's, do you think for smaller centers that are recruiting seasonal workers to hold a job fair on site, or go to the workers in the city that they live?
So if you're going to go and try to get someone outside your community, yeah, I would go to where they're at, because they're not going to come to you because there's no reason for them to come to you, right? So unless, it's more being convenient to them if you have the ability to go to them first.
Okay, all right, thank you. One more question. This is related to the first question. Do you have any suggestions for rural and remote recruiting, such as in provincial parks?
Yeah, so a couple things is that there's two things on that I would say is that it is really about educating people about what you do and who you are, because you're out of sight, out of mind, right? Like, you're not in front of these people necessarily. And the second thing is who you are. Why would someone want to actually move, like relocate or move or actually just work in a rural community or somewhere where they just aren't right now? So there's a few things that I would do with that. First of all, the education piece. So one thing that we found very helpful is when we're recruiting in smaller areas is that if you have, and it does not have to be professional necessarily, but if you have it, it's great, is like video, like, so they can see it and they can feel it. So if your town or village has a company, like a video about the town, or if you had pictures about that location so they can visually see it, and then you have a benefits page about like why someone would want to work there and kind of get it out in front of them, that education piece is really important. And then not only that piece, you have to think about, why would someone want this role here in this location where I could stay right here? So the benefits of having that role have to be out in front. And sometimes it's a lot of like thought process because you're not sure why someone would, but there's always the reason why. There's always a great reason for your organization. You just really have to own it. Does that answer the question?
I guess we have another one. Tracy. Questions are coming in fast and furious. So what are your thoughts? And is there anything that is beneficial, non-beneficial to hiring 2 employees for part-time or 1 full-time for a position?
I don't know the answer to that unless I have more context. It would, it's 2 different people, right? So you got to think of it that way. Like, and I don't know if that works for what you're looking for. I would have to have, if that person, if I could have another discussion with them, I have lots of questions around that. But keeping in mind, overall, when you're recruiting for part-time people and you're recruiting for full-time people, that goes back to 2 different targeted audiences. So it wouldn't be the same recruit.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Tracy. One more question. You did mention using videos for recruitment. Can you speak a bit more on that one? How does that one work?
Yeah, for sure. So one thing that we did here at Essence, and it's been very successful, is that we were always on Wednesdays, we were doing like a job promotion on one of the roles that we're recruiting for. And it's on paper, or it's or it's like through a feed. But we found with the human piece of actually like a raw video of like saying, hi, this is Ashley, this is Essence. We just did one this morning that probably just got posted for Janie for an HR role. And we talk about like the company and the fit, and to get them excited about it, and the humanness of it really does attract people, other than just always having just like a job board with lots of words on it, right? So it's just, and if you think about it, look at how like Reels have a pickup, like TikTok has a pickup. People love videos. People love seeing things. So if you can have a visual and really chat with people like you're having a conversation with them to sell them the opportunity, it's a successful way of getting in front of people. The other thing I would look at, and there can be inexpensive. There are lots of people that do this on the side of their job. They're not necessarily like a corporate video production company. Is do a company video, like do a 2-minute snap about your organization and where you are, what you're all about. And not only, a lot of the times we talk about in our company videos, we talk about the company and how we're going to service our clients or sell our product, but we forget that human piece of it. Make sure in that company video, you talk about your humans and talk about how great it is to work. So another thing that you could do is on your social media strategy is interview one of your employees about why it's so great to work there and post it. It's raw. It does not need to be like, you don't need a production company to come in there. You need a phone. And people like raw. Like they like the honesty. They like the transparency. They love to see the culture, and they can engage. So if you have that, that is a great piece of your social media strategy. So because they can visualize it, they can hear it, they're getting the buy-in.
Thanks, Tracy. One last question. I know that you said that the posting for online job posting should be 300 to 400 words. How long should be this video? Would it be 3 minutes, 2 minutes?
Oh, no, like seconds, like 15 seconds. I think 30 seconds is almost is almost a lot. You have literally less than 3 seconds to get someone's attention. You don't have it for long, right? So think about even Reels that you watch or TikToks, like they're not very long, right? Like they're very quick, they're short. That's what you need to be like. It seems long, but they're not. 15 seconds, 30 seconds, nothing more than that.
All right. Thank you so much, Tracy. Thank you so much.